Some might call this the twilight of capitalism. I'm not sure that I would call it that. I think I'd call it the twilight of the rich. There's come a time in society, in the world, when the notion of rich is an obsolete notion. Aren't there different kinds of richness? Isn't there the richness of experience? Isn't there the richness of a lived life? Is richness only defined as related to money? In that sense, I would say time has come to lay aside the childish things of gain for gain's sake at the expense of others. I'd like to tell you a story about my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather, he worked in the railroads. He came back from the First World War after having been gassed in the trenches. And he came to work for the Greenville Steel Car in Greenville, Pennsylvania, building railroad cars that would travel back and forth, east and west, north and south, across this great nation. He came to know the railroads, he rode the railroads, he worked the railroads, he built the railroad cars. Then the time came, the Great Depression, and the people of Greenville were hungry, and the economy was hard hit by the Republicans, as it were, but yes, they were even doing it then. In any case, my grandfather had been raised. He came of the hill stock of northern Italy, the cities around Carrara, the Marble Hills. He came from strong stock, and he came from a communal way of looking at things. If your family was hurting, you helped your family. But if your community was hurting, you had to think of your community as being your family. You made sure that they got to eat and they got to be sitting comfortably as well. And he did that. He built a potato camp outside of town on land, planted potatoes, planted his entire yard with tomatoes and other vegetables. He grew food that he would take out, he would harvest, he'd take around town in a cart and give to the people of Greenville so that nobody had to starve, because we were all one big family. Maybe there were rich people in that town. I'm sure there were rich people in that town. There's rich people in every town. I'm sure there were plenty of poor people. Everybody got to eat that year, those years. My grandfather, he was a Roosevelt man. He believed in the New Deal, and he believed in people pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps and rebuilding a ruined country. Country ruined by profit, speculation, and capital. It's true. Money. Money's a nice thing to have around, but if you don't got it around, it's not such a nice thing. My grandmother, she came of borderer stock. People who came over from Ireland and Scotland in the 17th century. Through the port of Philadelphia, they didn't even come through Ellis Island. They came through the port of Philadelphia. They swarmed westward, across the Appalachians, and into the Alleghenies, hill country of western Pennsylvania. Strong stock. The southern relatives, they voted for Jackson. The northern relatives mostly became Whigs, supported Henry Clay, in an unsuccessful run on the presidency. They voted for William Henry Harrison, right out of Pennsylvania. And later they became Republicans and voted for Lincoln. This used to be a swimming pool. Now just a lawn full of weeds. Well, anyway, my grandmother, when they first got to the country, her ancestors, it came with a stiff and indomitable pride. They held their heads high just because the people of Philadelphia and people who were already entrenched in America, people who were already full of a sense of entitlement even in the 17th century, didn't like the new immigrants. But my grandmother's family, they held their heads up high. They believed in pride and in working with your neighbor to help build a town full of pride and accomplishment. They backed Lincoln in the war between the states. He stood beside Lincoln during our great Civil War. And like our country, they came out of that insane battleground, tempered like steel, fine steel. Building a real backbone for our country. Triumph through adversity. We've all lost, we've all gained. But shouldn't we think about what might be too much gain? Tempering our gain. Making our world a place where everybody can get a piece of that pie. My grandfather taught me to fight for our communities. My grandmother told me to hold my head up high and be proud of who I am. Even if I don't have a fortune, even if I'm not a robber baron, even if I don't work as a puppet for Wall Street, the multinationals. It occurs to me sometimes that what is morally wrong can't possibly be a constitutional right. And really our Bill of Rights needs another right. And that's the right to act in the right. To not step on our neighbors, not exploit our neighbors. To not produce gain and a sense of entitlement on the struggle and labor of our fellow citizens. Our brothers, our sisters in this big family we call the United States. Things fall apart sometimes. But that doesn't mean they can't be put back together. Rather than think of this place here, these ruined tennis courts, these filled-in swimming pools, these boarded-up clubhouses, rather than think of this as the twilight of something, perhaps we should think of this as a new dawn of opportunity, equality, of democracy. It's always a good thing to think about when waking up in America. To remember, you were once an immigrant. Your people were once immigrants. They stood on the deck of a boat on choppy seas, coming into a safe harbor, and they looked upward at the great Statue of Liberty, torch of opportunity raised aloft to the soaring heavens. And they felt that sense of awe. They felt that sense of promise. They felt that sense of the possible. Let's keep America possible.